There's something deeply unsettling about funerals held at night. They're not meant to happen that way. Not when the air is cold enough to make you feel like you're the one being buried. Not when the only light is from flickering candles that cast too many shadows. But this story isn't about a real funeral. At least, not at first. Before we descend into the kind of darkness that clings to your skin long after the story ends, make sure to hit subscribe. Because if you're gonna be haunted tonight, at least you won't be alone. Now, let me tell you about the midnight funeral dream. Marcus wasn't someone who remembered his dreams. His mind, like many others, went blank the moment he opened his eyes each morning. But that night, he woke up drenched in sweat. His heart was pounding, and he remembered everything. In his dream, Marcus had been standing among a small group of people dressed in black. Their faces solemn, their eyes distant. They were gathered in the middle of a forest clearing. The ground was uneven, covered in fog that hugged the soles of his shoes like damp fingers. In front of them was a wooden coffin, closed. No priest, no ceremony, just silence so heavy it pressed on his chest. And the strangest part, he didn't know who had died. No one spoke. They just stood, as if mourning was something that required no explanation, as if the dead had demanded it. He looked around. A few of the faces were familiar. Co-workers, maybe faces he'd seen in passing at the office cafeteria, but they all stared ahead. Empty, as though they were sleepwalking. Then the coffin creaked. The sound sliced through the quiet like a breath caught in the throat. Marcus looked down at his own hands. They were holding a single white lily. He hadn't realized he was holding anything until that moment. And just as he felt compelled to place it on the coffin, he woke up. The morning after, he dismissed it as just a weird dream. Creepy, sure. But dreams were supposed to be weird. That is, until he got to work. Everyone was too quiet. HR had gathered in the break room. The air was heavy, not with grief, but confusion. Jessica, his manager, pulled him aside. "Did you hear about Darren?" Marcus blinked. "Darren from finance." She nodded, eyes red. "He died in his sleep last night. Heart failure. Just didn't wake up." Marcus felt cold. Darren had been one of the faces at the dream funeral. He tried to laugh it off. Coincidences happen. Right, except he couldn't shake the image of the coffin, the fog, the stillness, and Darren's blank expression as he stood next to it. That night, Marcus left the light on in his room. He told himself it was just because the power had flickered earlier, not because he was scared. But the fear crept in anyway. The kind that doesn't come with a scream, just the slow, sinking certainty that something isn't right. He lay awake, staring at the ceiling, until exhaustion pulled him under. And the dream came again. This time, there were fewer people. The forest was the same. The same fog, the same silence, same coffin. But now, there were only 5 of them. He recognized 2 more people, Sandra from tech support, and a janitor he'd seen maybe once or twice. Again, no one spoke. Again, the lily appeared in his hands. But this time, the coffin was open. He saw a face, pale, peaceful. Sandra. Marcus woke up screaming. The clock said 3:14 a.m. His shirt was soaked, and the sound of the dream still echoed in his ears. The subtle groan of the coffin lid. The soft rustling of unseen figures moving in the dark. He grabbed his phone with shaking fingers. No new messages. He didn't sleep again that night. By morning, he'd convinced himself not to say anything. He knew how it would sound. He wasn't going to go around predicting deaths from dreams. That was movie nonsense. But when he got to the office, it was too quiet again. This time, no HR people. No whispered conversations. Just silence. He checked his email. Subject in memory of Sandra Nunes. Message it is with deep sorrow. His stomach turned. Marcus didn't attend Sandra's real funeral. He couldn't. He told himself it was too much work. But the truth was, he was terrified. because the dream wasn't a coincidence anymore. And deep down, some part of him was already dreading the next night, already waiting for the fog, already hearing the creak of the coffin lid. And he wasn't wrong, because the dreams were only beginning. Marcus started counting the days between dreams. The second dream had come exactly 3 nights after the first. He tried to stay awake on the third, drinking coffee until his hands trembled and his vision blurred. But sleep always wins, and on the 6th night, just like clockwork, the dream returned. This time, there were only 4 people at the funeral. The same clearing, the same fog creeping like fingers under the trees, the same oppressive silence. The forest didn't feel like a place anymore. It felt like a memory. Not his, but something older, something waiting. He saw her before he even stepped closer to the coffin. The body inside was dressed in pale green, hands folded delicately over the chest. The face was unmistakable. The janitor from the office basement, Mr. Collins. Marcus remembered her quiet demeanor, always sweeping silently in the early mornings. He had never even spoken to her, but now she was dead, or would be. He woke up gasping. By now, the dreams felt too real. He could smell the damp earth, feel the chill crawling up his spine. His hands ached from gripping that cursed lily every time. That day, he checked the basement hallway. No one had seen Mr. Collins. He didn't show up for work, and by the next morning, the email came: unexpected passing, natural causes. Marcus wanted to scream, but worse than the fear was the certainty. This wasn't some freak psychic coincidence. This wasn't sleep paralysis or stress. This was something else, something ancient, deliberate, and he was part of it now. Marcus stopped sleeping. He drank. He stayed out late. He walked aimlessly just to stay awake. He tried hotels, new environments, anything. Nothing worked. The funeral dreams kept returning always after a 3-day pause. And each time, there was one less person standing around the coffin. Each time, someone he vaguely recognized. Someone barely more than a footnote in his life. Died in the real world. The 5th dream had only 3 mourners. And this time, Marcus didn't recognize the face in the coffin at all. Just a pale teenager with a scar across his chin. He must have passed on the street once. A stranger. Someone whose face had registered in his subconscious, just enough to be remembered. And yet he died too. News reported a sudden accident. Bike hit by a drunk driver. Marcus read every word, numb. It didn't matter who they were. If they appeared in the dream, they died. And that meant one terrifying thing. If he saw himself in that coffin, he wouldn't wake up. On the 10th night, Marcus did something he'd never done before. He tried to talk in the dream. When he arrived in the clearing, surrounded now by only 2 others, he turned to the man beside him. It was Paul, a security guard from the lobby. "Do you know what this is?" Marcus whispered. His voice sounded too loud in the hush of the trees. Paul didn't blink, didn't move. He just stared at the coffin. Marcus grabbed his shoulder. Nothing. Like a mannequin. The other person was a woman he couldn't name, but her eyes flicked toward him just once. Then back to the coffin. The lid opened slowly. Inside was Paul. Marcus stepped back, bile rising in his throat. He turned around. There was something new this time. Behind the trees, beyond the mist, a shape stood. Too far to see clearly, but it was watching. He could feel it in his spine. Like pins pressed into nerves, the figure didn't move, didn't blink. And Marcus woke up just before it stepped forward. By now, Marcus was unraveling. He stopped going to work. He barely ate. He searched online for sleep omens, dream rituals, folklore from every culture. The closest he found was an obscure legend from an old Japanese text. Yoru no Soji, the midnight funeral, a spirit ritual. Said to be a punishment for those who turned away from death in real life. Those who ignored grief. Those who passed the homeless corpse on the street without looking. Those who pretended not to see the suffering of others. They would be forced to witness funerals in dreams, each death pulling them closer until they themselves became the final mourner. And then the mourned. Marcus didn't know if it was real, but it didn't matter. It felt real, and that was enough. Night 14. 2 people left. Himself and a young woman he didn't recognize. She was sobbing. The only sound he'd ever heard in the dream other than the coffin's creak. She looked up at him, her face soaked in tears. "Please," she whispered. "Don't let me die." And then the lid opened. It was her inside. The same face. Now still. Marcus tried to scream at the others, tried to wake himself. But something was keeping him there. Something was watching. He turned toward the forest edge. The shape was closer now. He could make out the outline of a head. Long hair swaying in a wind that didn't exist. No eyes. Just darkness. And a faint sound. A breath. Warm and cold at once right next to his ear. "You're next." He woke up choking, but he didn't cry. He just stared at the ceiling, waiting for the final night. It would be the next one, and somehow, he knew he wouldn't wake up from it. The final day passed like a countdown, ticking louder with each passing hour. Marcus unplugged every clock in his apartment, but he could still hear it. Not the tick itself, but the silence between. He didn't shower, didn't eat. He just sat in the corner of his living room, knees pulled to his chest. The curtains drawn shut so tightly not even sunlight could offer comfort. He tried calling his sister. It rang once, then straight to voicemail. He hung up without leaving a message. What could he say? "Hey, I've been dreaming of funerals and people keep dying. I think I'm next." No one would believe him. But the worst part he knew, even if they did, they couldn't help. That night, he didn't fight the sleep. He just let it take him. When his eyes closed, it wasn't with fear anymore. It was resignation. Like stepping into the inevitable. And sure enough, the dream was waiting. Same forest, same fog, same coffin. Except this time, he was alone. There were no mourners now. No familiar faces. Just the trees whispering things he couldn't hear, couldn't understand, yet somehow knew were about him. He approached the coffin. The lily was still in his hand. He hadn't even looked down to find it. It was just there, like it always was. He dropped it. It landed with a sound that echoed. Not like something soft hitting wood, but like stone cracking under pressure. He stared at the coffin. The lid was already open. He expected to see himself. His own face pale and still. But the coffin was empty. And then he heard the footsteps. Not from behind him. Not from the trees, from inside the coffin. A hollow, slow scrape. As if something was climbing up from below. From a place far deeper than the box appeared to allow. Marcus backed away. The fog thickened. It wrapped around his ankles. Climbed his legs like smoke with weight. The coffin began to shake violently. Splinters cracked off the sides. The white lily turned black in an instant. And then she rose. The woman from the woods. The figure who had watched. Except now, Marcus could see her face. Or what was left of it. There were no eyes. Only dark sockets filled with movement like worms shifting just beneath the surface. Her mouth was sewn shut. Not with thread, but with something that looked like shadow. Coiling and tightening every time she tried to speak. She extended one bony finger toward him. Not beckoning, pointing. A judgment. Marcus couldn't move. He wanted to scream, but his voice was buried somewhere deep inside him. Locked in his chest, her finger lowered, and she whispered, "You remember now." Suddenly, flashes filled his mind. Memories he didn't recognize. A beggar he had ignored under the subway overpass. Face frozen in pain. A neighbor who died alone 2 doors down. He'd heard the coughs for weeks, but never checked. A co-worker crying silently in the bathroom stall. A moment he dismissed. All the deaths, all the pain, all the things he pretended not to see. He wasn't just a mourner. He was guilty. He had turned his back on death again and again. Like a man closing his curtain so the world couldn't ask for anything more. And now, the world had turned its back on him. The trees began to bend inward, their branches twisting into hands. The fog lifted, but instead of revealing the path out, it showed doors, hundreds of them, all open, all leading to more of the same funeral. Endless variations, endless deaths. A loop, a punishment, his punishment. He turned back, but the coffin was gone. So was the woman. Now, he was alone. The forest stretched on forever, and the only sound was his own breathing, until that too began to fade. Marcus was never found. His apartment remained locked from the inside. Half a glass of water on the table. TV on static. No sign of struggle. No sign of anything, really. Some said he left town. Others claimed he went crazy and wandered into the woods north of Bridge Hollow, where the trees are thicker than they should be. But there was one strange thing. A week later, a neighbor reported hearing soft knocks at their door every night at exactly 12:03 a.m. When they looked through the peephole, no one was there. Except once, they said they saw a man in a black suit, standing in the hallway, holding a single white lily, just staring, waiting. So, if you ever dream of a funeral held in the forest, and you don't know the name of the dead, don't stay, don't look into the coffin, and whatever you do, don't take the lily, because some dreams aren't dreams at all. They're invitations, and once you accept, I don't let you leave. Still here, still breathing. Good. Just make sure tonight, when the shadows feel a little heavier, when you hear that faint knock that no one else does,